So it's time to go back to the beginning. Time to go back to one of my old favorites, ripping on Game of Thrones. Welcome to the newest episode of SDW.
Super Dario World!
It's-a me,
Dario!
Woohoo! Let's go!
All right, so before I get into it, any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can find me at Dario the Show on Instagram or at SuperDarioWorld. Also follow my Facebook page, Super Dario World. There, I put up a link of absolutely every single podcast that I do. You can check out the 2 podcasts I did this week with my kid brother. That podcast is titled Super Dario Brothers. You can also find it on Spotify, iTunes, the iHeartRadio app, pretty much everywhere. And later on today, I will be doing, it'll be the return of my podcast in Spanish. I've had a lot of people asking me to talk about a particular subject, so I'm going to go back to that. If you're interested, I'll be loading it later today. And also, for those of you who are wondering, back when Game of Thrones ended, I thought that the last 2 seasons sucked, and so even one step further. When Game of Thrones ended, the ending was so bad that I made my own rewrite of the ending of the final episode, and then I took it one step further and decided, you know what, the final 2 seasons sucked, so I'm going to do a rewrite of those 2 seasons. I left it at the ending of, I believe, was it season 7? It was in the final episode, and then I think The Mandalorian started, and I got busy with that because I was reviewing that, and that was way more interesting. Point is, I left it unfinished. I will still finish it. I'm working on doing a summary because a lot of people told me that they got really confused and they were lost and didn't really follow who I was talking about. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to do a YouTube video about it, and I'll put like pictures of whoever I'm talking about, blah, blah. And so I've been working on the summary. It's taken a while because whenever I start working on the summary, I get mad because I remember how bad it was. Not the rewrite, the show. It makes me angry. I don't know why. And so I'm still working on it slowly because also I got busy with other stuff. You know, life happens, work. But I am still working on it. It will happen eventually. If you were waiting for that, it will happen. Maybe when Winds of Winter gets released. Who knows? So I found this little article that caught my attention a couple days ago. This week has been interesting. I already had planned out exactly what I wanted to talk about, and a whole bunch of curveballs got thrown my way. Fun ones, though, so I can't really complain. Anyway, here's the title of the article. And by the way, fair warning, there will be a lot of spoilers, Game of Thrones spoilers, in this podcast. Anyway, the title is Every Game of Thrones Question That's Been Answered Since the Series Finale. So, honestly, I hadn't really thought about this because these past few months, 2020 has felt like the longest year ever. But Game of Thrones ended about a year ago. The final season ended about a year ago. And according to this particular writer, now we have more information on the fates of a lot of characters. I mean, it's true. I wish they would have closed up certain storylines, but getting answers on the vague fates of a lot of characters, I guess, is also fun. You know, it's fun. And it really shows you, like, how terrible it ended. Because in less than a year, the show's been mostly forgotten. And by mostly forgotten, I mean even by me. I was a hardcore fan. Well, hardcore critic / fan. I'm a fan of the books. I'm still waiting for the books. But most people don't even want to think about it ever. It wasn't even mentioned. I don't think I believe I mentioned this earlier on in the lockdown. Nobody in any single list I ever saw about shows that they recommended for streaming or anything, nobody recommended Game of Thrones. Nobody. Well, maybe one. I'm trying to remember. The point is, nobody I talked to actually cared about watching it. Nobody even asked me, like, hey, should I watch it? No. It's pretty sad. It's pretty sad. It shows you how a terrible ending can ruin a show. But if you ask me, Game of Thrones had become bad way earlier before than that. But that doesn't matter. We're not going to talk about that right now. It doesn't really matter. So, let's start with an easy one. I'm going to try to keep a bunch of them together because I think that they should be together, but I'll start with one quick outlier. And that is, the question that's been answered is, what happened to Cersei's baby? Was she really pregnant? Now, this question to me, honestly, is really stupid because it is a moot point. A moot point because Cersei died. She should have been squashed, but for some reason we found her under rocks and her body was perfectly preserved. But yeah, she was squished, so the baby's dead. One way or another, the baby's dead. However, there's an interview with actress Lena Headey that explained that there was a scene that was cut from. By the way, Lena Headey plays Cersei, and she said that there was a scene that was recorded and it was cut from the season 7 finale. But here's what she said: "We shot a scene that never made it into season 7, which was where I lose the baby. It was really kind of traumatic. Great moment for Cersei that never made it in." And here's the thing about that. They cut it for a reason, and that's because they kind of needed her to be pregnant for Euron. Otherwise, the whole Euron thing, she would have had really nothing. Or, you know how she used the baby kind of to control Euron in a way, which really doesn't make any sense, but whatever. So they decided to cut that from season 7 just to keep Euron on a leash, basically. Or to think she had some kind of control over Euron, which she did, which was really stupid. So, honestly, I don't know why this was a mystery. Whether she was or wasn't pregnant, bitch is dead. And I'm assuming that when the mom dies, the baby in her belly usually dies too, especially if a castle falls on them. So, Lena Headey saying that they shot a scene where she lost the baby in season 7 really doesn't matter at all, because in season 8, she's clearly pregnant. So, all right, mystery solved, Mr. Detective Writer Dude. Anyway, moving on. What was Bran doing this whole time? Is he evil, worthless, or both? So here we get the actor who plays Bran, his name is Isaac Hempstead Wright. I believe that is how you say his name. To me, just Isaac. And he talks about Bran's ability to see the future. Because a lot of people think that, okay, if Bran could see the future, then every single thing he did was to set himself up as king, to be the three-eyed raven, and his lack of action or direct action all was in his own favor, blah, blah, blah. So here's what the actor says. Well, first off, he explains Bran's powers. And he says, "I don't think Bran knows exactly what will happen in the future. His vision of the future is slightly cloudier." Basically, the answer to that means, I don't know. He doesn't... Here's the thing. He doesn't understand how Bran's powers work because the writers do not understand how Bran's powers work. D&D did not understand Bran, and that's why they didn't really use him. They didn't understand Bran. They didn't understand Littlefinger. They didn't understand they didn't understand Varys. And so they just stopped using them for like whole seasons. They just had them sitting there doing nothing. And so that's what he's trying to say. Whenever an actor has to say, "I think this is what it means," they're usually wrong. All right? They're usually wrong. And here, you know who would be very useful if he actually understood the character Bran and his powers? The guy who plays him. If he can't give you a definitive answer, you're screwed. Honestly, it means that the writers did not have an answer. The D&D did not have an answer. Only George R. R. Martin really has an answer, and it's pretty clear that he didn't share it with them. So, moving on to another thing that he said. As I understand it, Bran can't exactly see the future. I think he can have inklings. The very purpose of a three-eyed raven is to be one who is wise and still and careful enough to handle this information and not just go blabbering it about, because that would affect the outcome. He's very cautious with what he reveals to people because he's aware that time has to unfold naturally. All right. If any word there is true, then absolutely every single thing that Bran did was in his own favor. You know, because he's the direct reason why Littlefinger's dead. He's the direct reason why he is dead. Pretty much every single thing that he did, it was a direct action. If he was supposed to not intervene, you know what would have been great for not intervening? Not being there. He could have been somewhere else, or could have just not talked to anybody. He could have gone to any other part of the world and just stayed away. But no, he directly intervened. You know what? You know what happens? You know what's a big part of the king's job description? Directly intervening in shit. So, yeah, I'm gonna go with bullshit on this one, and I'm gonna stick with my original assumption that yeah, this guy doesn't know what the fuck his powers were or what the character's purpose in the show was, because D&D did not know the answers to those questions. Ergo, he never got an answer from them. Anyway, moving on. We have, let's see, one, two, all right. Ooh, no, this one's pretty interesting. So, okay, I'll stick with this one because I'm trying to keep a couple of them together that seem to be a lot of fun. So, all right, this one's separate. Okay, so what did Arya Stark find west of Westeros? Now, this is actually a pretty fun, interesting little story. There's actually an answer, or there's theories of what is west of Westeros. First off, George R.R. Martin has confirmed that Planetos, which is the world where Westeros is, that's that world, is actually very similar to Earth, meaning it's round. So, if you kept sailing in a particular direction, you will end up on the other side of the world. So, it is, if she just kept going west nonstop and a storm didn't get her, and she had enough supplies, she should have ended up in Ashai, which Ashai is all the way to the far east. It would be if she sailed from America and she ended up in China, right? That is kind of that. That's exactly what would have happened. Assuming, all right, so imagine a world map. Westeros is America, China is Ashai, and so if you go from, let's say, San Diego, California, and you go west, just keep going west, eventually you'll end up in Asia, right? That is pretty much what happened to Arya if that was her purpose. And there's actually a character that, there's stories about particular characters that may have done that voyage and survived. There's one particular character that's actually very interesting and that I'm hoping, it all depends on the spin-off series Fire and Blood, what's going to happen there, which is Game of Thrones is getting a spin-off series that's supposedly been greenlit about the Targaryens family. Now, the Targaryen reign, the dynasty, spans a really long time, and it has a lot of characters. But there's one particular character that's related to this that's actually not a Targaryen. So there's a character named Eliza Farman. And so Eliza Farman supposedly is she's a very skilled sailor. She was very similar to Arya in personality and kind of rambunctious and kind of a wild child and a very independent, very strong, independent woman. And so she supposedly stole three dragon eggs from a Targaryen princess, Rhaena Targaryen, who actually used to be her best friend. The Targaryen story is fascinating, but very complicated. Anyway, so this chick, Liza, stole 3 dragon's egg from one of her best friends, Rhaena, after they kind of had a falling out, and she sold them, and supposedly, rumor has it that those are the 3 dragons that ended up being Drogon, Viserion, and Rhaegal, but that's never been confirmed, and the only thing that actually hints at that is the fact that it's 3 dragons, so we don't know. We don't know if it's those 3, but it's a fun little thing to think about. Anyway, so this chick sold those dragon's eggs, and she bought a ship, and she decided to go west of Westeros because the Targaryens were not happy with her, and they wanted to, imprison her. So she sailed on 3 ships. It's a parallel to Christopher Columbus and La Niña La Pinta La Santa Maria, and one ship pretty much got decimated in a storm. Another one they found land somewhere, like an island in the middle of the ocean. Imagine like they found Hawaii, and that ship was like, you know what, fuck it, we're going back. So they went back, and Eliza supposedly kept going. And rumors have it that at one point a sailor saw that particular ship anchored in Ashai, but so supposedly she just went around the world. Who knows? Honestly, who knows? There's rumors of this Eliza might actually be Quaithe, who you may or may not remember from the show. She's the girl who had a wooden mask who talked to Daenerys and gave her the prophecy. I don't expect you to remember that. The point is, interesting thought, but the answer to the question is, what did Arya find west of Westeros? The answer would be either death, which would be hysterical, or she found Ashai, which helps her. How? I don't know. Honestly, I have no idea how it would help her, or what benefit brings to her at all. I understood why Eliza left perfectly. She just stole 3 dragon's egg from the Targaryens. They had dragons. They would be mad. So you gotta get the fuck out. And you can't go east of Westeros because that's Pentos, that's Bravos, and people will capture you there and sell you to the Targaryens. So she had to go west and see what the fuck happened. But I guess it's a fun little thing to talk about, and it's a fun little thing to wonder. And at the time that the show ended, I don't think that Fire and Blood had come out yet, so this is actually new information for both of us. And to me, honestly, it gets me excited about Fire and Blood more. Because like I said, the Targaryen dynasty is fascinating. Fascinating. It's really weird. Probably one of the most, in the bottom half of the most boring Targaryens is Daenerys. Daenerys is actually beyond boring, particularly show Daenerys, compared to all the other ones. And I really hope that what they do with that show is just show you like one generation per season would be great. Because they have a lot of great characters. Probably the most interesting one, if I'm thinking about it, is the Rogue Prince, maybe the Dragon Knight. Obviously, Aegon the Conqueror would be great. If Eliza here, the story of Rhaena's daughter is brutal. But you know what? I'm getting too far off topic. It would be fun to think about, but unfortunately, we kind of know what happened to Arya, and her thing was stupid. You know what? It should have ended how Arya's story should have ended. Or if we're actually talking about following real-world medieval rules, her story would have ended with Sansa looking at her and saying, "You're marrying fucking Gendry. I don't give a fuck what you say. I am the queen here, and you're marrying fucking Gendry." And are you kidding me? An alliance with the Lord of the Stormlands? Yeah, you're fucking marrying the guy. So that's probably what would have happened, and it would be actually kind of in Sansa's character, but you know what? Whatever. Doesn't matter. It's not like it would have been fun writing or a funny scene or whatever. Anyway, so now we enter into the crux of it, and there's 3 questions here that are pretty interesting. So, where did Drogon go with Daenerys? Why did Drogon burn the Iron Throne? And where did Jon Snow go? Now, I'm going to keep all those together because they're kind of tied up. And honestly, they kind of have to do a little bit with my rewrite, the ending that I gave, the alternate ending I gave to the final episode. So, the answer to Drogon, there's been a lot of theories, but there's an actor that actually talked about it. Again, keep in mind, actors don't know shit. So if they're giving you a theory, well, I'll just read you the answer. This is an answer from actor John Bradley, who plays Samwell Tarly in Game of Thrones. Here he goes. Drogon is probably going to get up to his adventures. Presumably, he's still fueled by grief and the bitterness of that. And I think if you can think of it as if there's still a dragon out there that's fueled by anger and fueled by grief and still got a sense of bitterness, then nobody's going to quite sleep easily in their beds. I think he tried to say sleep quite easily in his bed, but I'm nobody to judge for how a person speaks. So, that's John Bradley's theory. And again, when an actor says probably, maybe, something, it means I don't know shit. And the reason why he doesn't know shit is because the writers don't know shit. Also, it doesn't really answer why Bran was looking for him at the end of the show. So this question was stupidly answered. However, there's another interesting Reddit theory about it, and the Reddit theory suggests that Drogon is taking Daenerys to Asshai, where he will be resurrected and become the undead dragon queen of the Shadowlands. And as we all know, a red priestess like Melisandre from Asshai has the ability to resurrect a person. Interesting theory. Interesting theory. However, that means that a dragon is way, way, way smarter than you give him credit for. So I'm going to actually help you out with this question. First off, it would be interesting if Drogon goes to Asshai, because Arya is going to Asshai, and so it would have been interesting if Daenerys comes back to life in Asshai, and it's exactly where, and that's where Arya finds out, and so she goes back and blah, blah. It would be interesting. Or that's where Arya kills her, whatever. It could be interesting. However, I'm going to help out your theory because your theory is a bit weak. My theory here would be, as I've talked about this multiple times, I believe that most of the Starks are wargs, meaning that, well, the Stark children are wargs. At least in the books, they're clearly wargs, meaning that they can go inside the minds of of their direwolves. That's like Bran does. You know, he goes inside the minds of animals. I believe that most of the Stark children can do that. There's also a theory that the Targaryens have telepathic connections with dragons, and that's why they can ride them. And if you think about it, Daenerys was just holding on to a spike in Drogon's head. How did she communicate? How did she tell him where to go? She didn't have any stirrups. She didn't have a saddle. She didn't have anything. So it is very likely that the way that she communicated with him is telepathically. In fact, there was supposedly, according to Kit Harington, who plays Jon Snow, there was a scene that was deleted from season 8 where Jon Snow actually mentions that there's a line that got deleted where he says that, it's almost like he could tell what I was thinking, where I wanted him to go. So there is certain precedent about a telepathic link between Dragon Rider and its dragon. So maybe, possibly, after Daenerys gets killed by Jon Snow, her mind or spirit goes into Drogon, similarly in the way that a warg goes into a beast, and they have a second life. And that's why when Drogon is about to spit fire at Jon Snow, she takes control at that point, and she turns it into the Iron Throne, effectively setting her love free from the Iron Throne, and also being like, fuck you, fuck this thing, fuck whatever, it cost me my life, it cost me everything. And then she picks up her own dead body and goes to Ashai to maybe try to resurrect herself. Maybe. Is it ridiculous? Yeah, certainly. Is it let's say, a little bit sturdier than the fan theory on Reddit? I think so. But then again, I'm my own number one fan, so who knows? Moving on to something that's actually quite related. Why did Drogon burn the Iron Throne? This is something that has been bugging a lot of people for a very, very long time. I just kind of gave you an excuse. It was actually not Drogon burning the Iron Throne. It was Daenerys burning the Iron Throne. Or at least taking over Drogon's body. There's been a million theories, and I particularly like the meme where Drogon sees... where he sees the blade in Jon's hand. He's like, spiky thing. I found that hysterical. But there is actually a simpler. Actually, let me tell you how I ended it. Because when I did the rewrite of my alternate ending to Game of Thrones, I tried to give an explanation to that thing because it made no fucking sense. And in my alternate ending, what happened is Drogon is getting ready to shoot fire right at Jon, and jerks at the last second, turns towards the Iron Throne, right? As Jon is looking at him like, what the fuck? Why am I still alive? He looks into his eyes, and Drogon's eyes are white, meaning that there is someone taking over his body. In this case, it was Bran. So Bran, all the way from Winterfell, wargs into Drogon, is able to take enough control of him to divert the flame, and so Drogon gets kind of freaked out after that and just gets the fuck out, right? And Bran kind of takes his body a little bit, and he starts burning stuff around, burning Daenerys' army, and then the dragon, who is kind of freaked out, gets the fuck out. So, however, I did put a consequence there, and that's that Bran, by warging into Drogon, he starts burning from the inside, because that's what happens when you warg into a dragon, the living equivalent of a nuclear bomb, which is how George R. R. Martin actually portrays dragons. They're the equivalent of having a nuke. So, consequences. Honestly, I thought it would have been better. But again, my own number one fan. But now we actually have an explanation over these motives, and let's just say it's classic D&D. So, I'm going to read you a piece of the script from the final episode of Game of Thrones, right? I'm going to read you a piece of the script from the Emmy Award-winning show, all right? Here is that particular moment as written on the script. Here we go. We look over Jon's shoulder as the fire sweeps towards the throne. Not the target of Drogon's wrath, just a dumb bystander caught up in the conflagration. We look through the blades of the throne as the flames engulf it and blast the wall behind it. We see the throne in flames, turning red, then white, then beginning to lose its form. We get tight shots of the details melting in the silhouette, the armrest, the iconic fan of swords in the backrest. The fire stops. The smoke clears, revealing a puddle of smoldering slag where the throne once stood. Who will sit on the Iron Throne? No one. And, quote. So, according to this piece first off, there's a lot of things wrong here. And, when you're writing in script format, I need to get this out of the way for those of you who don't know. When you're writing in script format, you usually write actions. You're giving a whole bunch of directions to somebody, so when they read it, they can visualize what to do. You're giving directions. You don't color the scenes that way. You don't write in prose. You don't write unnecessary details. For example, one thing right here: the iconic fan of swords. Iconic is not necessary there. You can say the fan of swords melts in the backrest. That's fine, right? You can't say just a dumb bystander. It could be like just it was there. Just mention that it was there and it's being engulfed in flames. There's nothing. Who will sit on the Iron Throne? No one. That is not necessary. It should be implied. All right. If the fucking thing melted, it should be implied that nobody's going to sit on it. You don't need to add color to it. Why? Because basically you're sucking your own dick. That's what happens when writers write this way in a script format. It's not necessary. You're just trying to suck your own dick and have people be like, oh my God, that was such a deep form of writing. You're just complicating shit, bro. All right. I hate it. It's a personal pet peeve. I don't like it. It should have no color, no personality, unless we're talking about characters and their form of speaking. But whatever. Doesn't matter. It was just a dumb bystander. The throne. The melting of the throne. Now, I don't know if you noticed this, but I'll count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That thing right now on the page that I'm seeing it was 9 lines long, right? 9 lines. 8 of them, let's say 7.5 of them are a description of what happens to this dumb bystander. So, if it's just a dumb bystander, clearly not that important, why did you describe it in such fucking detail? Right? And let's get into the crux of it. Why the fuck was it just a dumb bystander? So, what you're telling me, D&D, what you're telling me is that the reason why Drogon did not murder Jon Snow and melted the Iron Throne is just because of, it was there. And he was in a rage and he wanted to throw away a flame and he didn't want to hit Jon. Because what? This is fucking worse than any other thing I could have possibly imagined. Worse. I've heard a billion explanations for that particular thing. There was 100 reasons why they could have done it. And the only reason, now that we know it, was that, I don't know. This is so fucking D&D that, this thing is dead. The show's dead, all right? And they still disappoint me. They still fucking find ways of disappointing me. Jesus fucking Christ. How? How did anybody give him money? How did anybody ever give him money for this? How? What were you, HBO? I'm actually very disappointed in you, HBO, because I sang your praises early on this week, but this is just mind-numbingly stupid. How the fuck? George, how the fuck did you trust him? You know, I'll give him, the first 2 seasons were good, where you were holding their hands, but Jesus fucking Christ. And why would you ever release this? Why would you let anybody ever see that? The reason why it happened is because it was there. It was there. So it was just a coincidence. Pure fucking coincidence. No other reason. If they would have been in any other room, then the Iron Throne would have still been there, and so somebody would have sat on it. So, oh God, I've heard bullshit before. Bullshit pieces of story. I've read a whole bunch of dumb shit, but this is I might have a migraine after this. I'm actually dumber for having read it. I'm sorry, and you're even dumber for having listened to it because I said it as I was becoming dumber reading it. So I'm sorry, but if I'm suffering, you're suffering with me. Anyway, so that was brutal. And let's just put a quick death. Let's just go to the final one. Where did Jon Snow go? So here is what Kit Harington said. Now, we all know what Jon Snow did. He broke his vows once again because that's what he does. And he was sent to be at the Wall, which was really stupid because the Wall now belongs to the North because the North is its own independent kingdom. But Bran sends him to the Wall, even though his sister is the queen in the North. It was really weird. Honestly, it was really stupid. Beyond fucking stupid. But Jon breaks his vows one more time, and he decides, you know what, I'll just go with the Free Folk over to the Land of Always Winter because fuck it, I can do whatever I want. I'm Jon fucking Snow. Anyway, here's what Kit Harington had to say. Seeing him go beyond the Wall, back to something true, something honest, something pure with these people he had always told he belongs with, the Free Folk. It felt to me like he was finally free. Instead of being chained and sent to the Wall, it felt like he was set free. It was a really sweet ending. As much as he had done a horrible thing in, killing Daenerys, as much as he had felt that pain, the actual ending for him was finally being released. So, a few things there. How was this an answer to what the hell happened to Jon Snow? Where did he go? We knew this. We knew this. Also, again, actors know nothing when they talk about this stuff, but whatever. But you didn't really... Okay, the question was, where did Jon Snow go? We saw him go beyond the Wall with the wildlings. So, we assumed that he went beyond the Wall with the wildlings. What Jon Snow said was, he went beyond the Wall with the wildlings. So how is this new fucking information? Right? In any way? Is this in any way any fucking useful? So not only is D&D horrible, this fucking writer of this article is also a dumbass. Because you gave us nothing other than Kit Harington confirms what you already were thinking. Because it's what you saw with your own fucking eyes. So, I'm annoyed. My alternate ending there actually ended. I found a really dumb excuse to make Jon Snow go up there. Because I gave myself the rule that it was going to end in a very similar fashion as possible. I had to follow the beats. I just had to make it more interesting. Anyway, so it ends. I did have to put Jon Snow going off with the Free Folk over to the Land of Always Winter, and the way that I had it ending though was as he's going north. He's going into these trees. Drogon falls from the sky, lands right in front of him, and he looks pissed. Jon kind of everybody's freaked out. Jon kind of reaches out a little bit, and Drogon looks like he's gonna do something, and then it cuts to dun 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 dun. So it's kind of like, is he gonna tame the dragon or not? Is the dragon there for revenge? So it's kind of like a cliffhanger-y thing. I thought it would have been more fun. Maybe it wouldn't have been as conclusive. It could have looked like Drogon was actually considering something. Who knows? Who knows what a dragon does? I thought it would have been more fun, but. This whole thing was bullshit, and honestly, it made me mad. I thought I was gonna have fun ripping into this. I remember watching every single Game of Thrones episode and just having fun ripping it to shreds. I really enjoyed that. I really, really, really enjoyed that. That's just pissed me off. This dude who wrote this stupid article pissed me off because it gave me really nothing. It just made me mad. Anyway, I believe that's it for today. Oh, well, that's it for today in English. I'm still going to record the Spanish one. I probably need to do something in between because I need to be in a better mood. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed that. As always, any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can find me at Dario the Show on Instagram or at SuperDarioPeriodWorld. Again, you can find all my other podcasts. I put the links up on my Facebook page, Super Dario World, so like that, follow it. As always, thank you for listening, and I'll see you again next time.